the presence, the power, sociability, the high, emotional intelligence that was around, like this is elite. This is the bar. Yeah. But I embrace that again as a growth opportunity.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Jabir McKnight, and I'm your host of the Spark Podcast. I have an amazing guest with me today, Derek Lewis, a husband, a father, an entrepreneur, a corporate titan, the highest-ranking Black member of Pepsi of all time, and a now author of Survive and Advance. Welcome.
Hey, I like to meet that guy you're talking about, man.
I like to meet him. That's why you're here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here for many reasons, but I appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation today.
Thank you so much. Yep. There are so many layers to this book, and there's so many layers to your story, and we'll cover as many as we can. I know the book releases January 28th.
Yes.
On all platforms, Amazon, Walmart, Target, where else?
All online retailers will have it, no doubt about it, yep.
Your story is amazing. As a native Washingtonian, you've dealt with a lot. You've accomplished a lot. I think before we get to all of your accomplishments, to better put them in context, we have to understand where you've come from, what you've been through, and the lessons you learned along the way to accomplish what you have. Is that good with you?
Yeah, fantastic.
Cool. So let's start in Washington, D.C. You grew up in Northeast Washington, D.C.
Riggs Park neighborhood. I was born in D.C. General. I think our first 3 or 4 years of my life, we lived in Southeast, we lived in the Mayfair community, but then we ended up moving over to the Riggs Park section in Northeast, and I spent the rest of my childhood and teenage years there.
Mm-hmm. How has, being a native Washingtonian of Chocolate City, which you have a chapter,
Number one chapter, very first chapter of the book, Chocolate City.
That's important to the context of this conversation. Walk us through, some of the highlights of that chapter and how it lays the foundation for what's to come.
Well, look, I'm proud. I'm a proud Washingtonian, man. I love the fact that I grew up in D.C., an amazing city, in the 60s and 70s. Certainly, things have changed quite a bit from where it is now. I think the city obviously has evolved in many, many different ways from where it was when I was, growing up in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s. But it's still a city that I'm very, very proud of when I come back home. The neighborhoods, when I drive through them, still feel the same, got the same feel. Brings back a lot of great memories as a kid. You're right, Chocolate City at the time, I think D.C. was at least 75% plus African-American. So it had a great cultural vibe to it. It was a really fun city to grow in, a lot to do. Not a big city, too. Getting from point A to point B didn't necessarily take that long back in the day because it was a small city to get, across the city. Neighborhoods are cool. A lot of great experiences on the playground. I love playing basketball, and I just remember a lot of great pickup games and a lot of great times going to the parks. A lot of places to go listen to good music. It just had a great vibe to it from day one, a city that I'm proud to be part of.
Speaking of basketball, and I know that's an important context, some of your son plays basketball, correct?
My youngest and my daughter play basketball.
Absolutely.
As well.
Your daughter's a professional basketball player.
She was.
Yep.
Yeah, she was.
What part of Washington, D.C. has the best hoopers?
The part of the city?
Yeah. Who breeds the best hoopers? Just in your opinion.
Well, back in my day, the public schools had the ballers, right? And the Catholic schools. I went to a Catholic school, obviously. So you had this thing where, you had good kids in Northeast, you had good kids in Southeast, you had good kids in Northwest. You had a lot of great kids represent the high schools because all the high schools were scattered. Yeah. So some of the high schools were in Southeast, had really good programs. Some of the high schools in Northwest had great programs. The Catholic school programs were really, really good. It was a rich thing. Basketball players in the DMV, as they extended now, is super rich. But in the city, itself, you had a tremendous amount of highly skilled basketball players, right? And it was the thing. That's what you did as a kid. You went to the playground, you played pickup. I started playing basketball, I would do anything to have something in my hand to shoot in something.
Yeah.
I always use these analogies. We would be in the alley, for example, at my grandparents' house, there was an alley in the alleyway, where the trash trucks would go to pick up the trash and all that. We would go take milk crates and nail them against a pole, telephone pole, utility pole, and would take like a kickball or whatever type of ball we had, soccer ball, whatever thing could bounce, we would use that as a basketball hoop. I mean, so this notion of just creating basketball goals, the Nerf hoops. Yeah. I would love when I go to a store and go buy a Nerf hoop because I'd hang that on the door in the house and I'd be shooting around. Yeah. And so this notion of being able to play basketball all the time, whether it was on a traditional court with a traditional rim or a Nerf hoop or a milk crate or whatever it was just an exciting thing to do. And you would play against each other. You would play one-on-one against a Nerf hoop. You play 2-on-2 in the alley in the milk crate. And then obviously when you get on the cement, and you're playing at playgrounds or you're playing at schools, you're playing full 5-on-5 or 3-on-3 or whatever, but you're going all day, all night. The places that had lights, we're staying there till midnight playing, if not later, So it's just something that it wasn't just passing the time by. It was a way to socialize. It was a way to compete. It was a way to build some teamwork, some chemistry. It was a way to get rid of some frustration, kind of blow off some steam that you had going on. Even as a kid, for me, I had a lot of steam I wanted to blow off, and basketball was a good place to go do that. So all of my good friends played. Skill level mattered in terms of how long you played, because if you lost,
you're off the court.
You're off the court. This was a who's got next, and you want to keep winning. Yeah. Or showcase enough where if you did lose, you got picked up by the next team, the next captain of the game. Yeah.
So that resonates across community. I grew up in South Philadelphia, and that is the same for me. If I would draw the line in the sand, I would say South Philly has the best hoopers. Okay. Some people would say North Philly, Rasheed Wallace and guys like that. That being said, that is very essential to building community. I think about even now, I reflect on some of the struggles that I face, but also, members of my community, my friends, day ones, that we dealt with in the community, but it never felt like that when we were in the park right after school, from sun up to sundown, metaphorically, whether it was cold outside, it could have been raining, it could have been snowing, you out there with a hoodie on with your friends. And it was about community building. It was about our competitive nature, but there was also an escape from everything that was going on. But that's so essential to spend time and socialize around people, whatever that activity is.
It just doesn't happen anymore, though. Yeah. It doesn't happen the way it did when we were growing up. Obviously, there are a lot more things to do now, distractions, I would maybe sometimes call them myself, but that was the thing to do. You're outside playing. Now, we weren't playing basketball. We're playing football in between the streets, in between the cars. And, these cars were first downs, and these cars were the end zones. Yeah. And, we make up our own field, or we go play softball in a big parking lot when there was the shopping centers were closed. We go up and makeshift and create a softball field. And we had a bat, and we found some softballs, and we play that way. So it was all about going outside, competing, and making the most of your time together, right? But finding ways to, compete individually, but also compete as a team. And your point, just getting away from some of the grind, because then when you had to go back in the house, in the case, depending upon where you are, what kind of household you came from, you had to go back to the grind, your responsibilities, the pressure, the anxiety, or you had to go to school, same kind of things, right? But playing sports and getting out in the streets and being around each other and just kind of hanging out, creating games was some of the funnest times I've had when I was a kid.
I agree, and it's interesting, us being this is an intergenerational conversation, right? But those experiences cut across generations. It's making me think about the chapter Jonan, right? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah,
but similar. I've played football, tackle football, on cement growing up. Right, car to car. That's where the touchdown is, right? Even wrestling outside, and it's like, from DC to Philly to New York to Baltimore, we all have this shared experience, and it's so interesting. And I think it's important to lay that foundation for our audience to understand where we come from as we kind of continue to have this conversation. So let's talk a little bit more about your transition and talk a little bit more about familiar life, family, and, school. I know you said you went to a Catholic school. You didn't go to a public school. Tell me a little bit more about that. Was it for the education, or was it for a different reason? And how did that influence your education going forward?
I think so. I think my mom, wanted to invest in me and make sure that I got the best education I can get. At that time, Catholic schools were relatively inexpensive. They were funded by the Archdiocese mainly, so there's a lot of funding coming from the Archdiocese. So, and plus for her income, I think we even got a little bit of a tuition break. So we're not talking about like a really expensive proposition like it is now today. So that investment was made with me. I'm obviously in my siblings after that. So I went to Catholic school my entire life. Grade school, I went to one school, grade school, 1 through 8, and I went to one high school, 9 through 12. And so my entire childhood, school life was Catholic experience, but I wasn't Catholic. I never got baptized in Catholic faith. Really didn't even really go to church, but I was kind of going to church every day. So I felt in many ways I was staying very close to God because of the traditions of Catholic school, day in and out in the masses and things of that nature. So I always felt like I was connected, but even though I wasn't officially connected, sometimes I would feel guilty going up for communion because I wasn't baptized. And sometimes the kids go, "You're not baptized. You can't go get communion. You can't go accept Christ." And I'm going, I'm going to do it. And then sometimes I would feel like I didn't do it. Sometimes I actually would sit in the pew and kids would get up and walk past me because sometimes I did feel maybe a little guilty. Am I going too much? Am I overstepping my bounds? I always wrestle with that, really throughout my whole life for that matter. And but I enjoyed the disciplines. I enjoyed sort of the uniform structure and the tie and the learning environment and, the fathers, the brothers, the sisters that were teaching a lot of the classes. They came from a really good place. They were strict. I think a lot of people didn't realize back then, and I don't know what it's like now, but back then it was a very strict code. I mean, if you stepped out of line, you got paddled, and so any occasion, talking back, chewing gum, being late for something, you would potentially put yourself in a situation where you had to go in front of the room and get paddled during the paddle sessions.
Oh, you got paddled in the front of the room in front of everyone?
Oh yeah, this was definitely the paddle of shame. This was definitely the discipline of shame here.
What hurt worse, the paddle or the embarrassment that you're getting paddled in front of everyone?
That paddle, man, it had the holes in it. The paddle had the holes in it. They had these big, long, rectangular, and I'm talking about the nuns, the sisters.
Yeah.
When they swing that thing and all that air is coming through.
You can hear it cutting through the air.
Yeah, you can hear it cut through the air. And I remember the second grade, I think, was the first time I got paddled. I did something wrong. I forgot what I did wrong, but I had to go up to the front of the room, and basically you bend over. They tell you to bend over, and then whack, and then that thing, man, stings like unbelievable. I was like, holy cow, this is crazy. And a lot of the kids would start crying, for a few minutes. You try to hold back laughing because, I mean, some ways it was funny.
Yeah.
Because like you're not getting paddled, but somebody else is, and when you're watching somebody cry, like the kids are kids, man.
Yeah.
So it's like, dang, man. They just got whacked, And
let me get in
so
line.
It
won't be me.
It was painful and embarrassing at the same time.
Yeah.
So which is the reason why I think like they want you to stay in line.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go through that process. And so I may have gotten paddled over my school life 10 times maybe, for different reasons. And yeah, they were all, they all weren't comfortable. One time I was getting paddled for something that I didn't deserve to get paddled for. Yeah. I was almost like in protest. So what I did is I didn't go to school that next day. I stayed home. I hid over my grandmother's house. I hid in the basement all day long. I literally hid in the basement. I did not go to school. Because
what did you do in the basement?
I just stayed behind like a little bar area. I mean, it's a small basement, relatively speaking, but it felt like a big basement back then. But I basically went outside like I was going to get on the bus because my mom dropped me off at her house to get on the pickup bus to go. And I went outside to act like I'd get on the pickup bus and pickup bus. If they don't see you outside, they just leave. They assume you're not coming to school. And so I basically went out and like went around the corner to the back of the house and just snuck in through the back and stayed in the basement all day long. And she was coming down to wash clothes. I mean, I'm like, sitting behind that bar area, not moving. I literally stayed there from what would be 7:30 till I would get home normally. I would walk home from school. I wouldn't catch the bus home because I don't think sometimes I walked home. So I would get home maybe like 3:30, 4. And then basically I went outside, went back around, came in the house at 4 o'clock like I had been to school all day. And then my mom picked me up and this, that, and the other. And what had happened, I think the next day is that they called to suggest that I was absent. I didn't have an excuse absent. Nobody heard from me and knew what was going on. So then I finally had to tell my mom like what had happened, and because the next day I'm feeling like they're gonna just do the same thing to me again.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, she's like, "What's wrong with you?" I can tell something's wrong. I'm like, I don't want to go to school. They're going to paddle me, and I don't think I deserve to be paddled. I wasn't at fault for what they claimed me to be at fault for. So she stood behind me on that, and she called the school and worked it out. And I went to school the next day, and I didn't get paddled.
What did that mean to you, or meant for you, that your mom stood behind you? I know for me that my mom was the same way.
Right.
She was very old school in that way that she's going to stand beside her family, and if there's a disagreement, you have that conversation in private, but you don't stand in front of someone else and side with someone else. Like, what did that feel like for you? Was that meaningful?
It felt great. Well, my mom and I were on the same page.
Yeah.
Growing up, I mean, we were on the same page, and so she knew the things that she respected the things I was doing for the family. I respected the things she was doing for the family. So we had this unique sort of bond and code where we got to hold it down for the house, right? We got to hold it down. You got to do your part because you got two young brothers. I got to do my part. I got to pay the bills. You know, we got to work together on this. And we had help from my maternal grandmother, but she was aging, obviously, and couldn't do a lot, but she was there to obviously watch me during the watch hours. But then after that, and I went home, then I was basically in charge of the house with my mom, or when she go work the night shift, I stayed with the kids, and then she picked me up the next morning and get me to school. So it was a hybrid life approach, but we had this alignment on everything. And, so I think when she saw and felt like I was being really honest and transparent, I wasn't BSing her, that I wasn't at fault and I should not be paddled for something I'm at fault out of, she stood behind me. I think if she thought I was BSing her or lying to her, I think she would have, sort of pushed forward the accountability part. But I think she knew my son is telling me the truth. My son is right, and I'm going to back my son up. And that, massive respect, massive love for that. But that's the kind of rhythm that we had then, because we had to trust each other. Yeah. So when something was in doubt and she came to me and asked me to do something that we needed to do, I did it, because it was like, I trust my mom, and I know if she needs me to do it, I got to do it. Yeah. Even if I didn't want to do it or believe in doing it, I had to do it, and vice versa, right? So that was a foundation that installed confidence in me, but also gave me a lot of responsibility that I had to shoulder, because I got two young siblings in the house, man. So if not doing this for me, I got to make sure I'm doing it for them. Yeah. So it became this whole thing where you're not just worrying about yourself anymore. You got to worry about a unit. And, you're a young guy. You're 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. Responsibilities come to you at an early age. It is what it is. Embrace it. Learn from it. I still had fun as a kid. I mean, when I had moments to be a kid, when I didn't have the responsibility of watching them, I was a kid. I enjoyed being that kid. And, but also there were times when I was an adult. Even though I was a kid, I was an adult. Yeah. So half my life I was living as a kid, the other half of life I was living as an adult. And it was sort of the contrast between those two was profound, and the lessons and shifting on the responsibility meter to not giving a shit, at some stages. And so that dynamic every day, every week, every month, every year was amazing, in many ways.
So one of the things I'm thinking about, you mentioned having this huge responsibility at 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, and then growing up in a single-parent household. Your father was around, but he wasn't really around. I wonder, how did that impact you at that age range that you just mentioned versus once you went into high school and you became a little bit more, I guess, aware of just how different your experiences may have been from your peers?
Well, I recognized it earlier because when I was going to Catholic school, I'd noticed there were kids that seemed to be a lot more stable emotionally, and also had resources. So there's kids that came to school, they got dropped off by either parent. Both parents were in the house. They always seemed to have money in their pocket. They had the nice lunch boxes. I saw that early on. And I saw situations where it was like my situation where you're not going to have you don't have the best of anything. You have what you need to get by, but you're not certainly in that top tier. And I also saw kids like me who are not stable every day because you're however you left the house is kind of what you're going to carry for the day. If you left the house in a frantic, high anxiety, mode based on what happened last night or what happened even in the morning, you're going to carry that through school. You're going to carry that sentiment, and you're just going to be a little bit off your game that day because you're just so worried about what's going on. Where I saw kids that come to school, they got dropped off, they look the part, they sound the part, they've got the resources, they seem to be really fine. I go, like how come, it's not really how come I don't have what they have and they have what they have. It wasn't really about that, but it's how do I get to that place of emotional stability, resources, and I look back at the common theme was they got both parents in the house. They got both parents in the house. So there's a common ground early in my life that I saw is, hey, if you're going to have any chance of having emotional stability, it starts with two parents in the household. From there, once it goes down to one parent, the odds are going to change. The circumstances are going to change. You're going to be faced with a whole different set of circumstances and challenges because you lost 50% protection that you have. That's how it is. I mean, one parent is 50% of what it could be, of what those other kids had. And that's a lot. 50% of anything is significant. And that's what it was. And being a boy, having a dad not around could even be more significant, than that, because that dad role early on plays a bigger role in some of the things that go on, especially when you're dealing with the streets. Mom's always going to have her nurturing qualities and things that she brings to the table. But there are things in the streets that you need a dad in the house. You need a man in the house to right the ship on my attitude, on what's right from wrong. I was doing wrong. So I was being guided into wrong as a kid. I was seeing wrong as a kid from the dad. Yeah. So my circumstances are now even, below this 50%. Like now it's really rounding down. So when I go to school every day, what'd you do last night? We were hustling last night. We were on the hustle last night. I'm on the hustle. What were you doing last night? I was doing my homework. I had a great meal. We sat down as a family at the dinner table. I read a bedtime story, and, life is good. I got up the next day and everything was there. My mom did my hair, or, my mom made me breakfast, and we got driven to school. Life's good. What'd you go through last night? What? Not even close to that. Not even close to that. I was trying to just get through the night, much less worried about what I'm going to do when I wake up in the morning. Yeah. And then I'm running to get a bowl of cereal and whatever, because it's sugar, cereal, and milk. That was the breakfast. That was it. There were no bacon and eggs and pancakes, maybe on the weekend. But on the weekday, it's that bowl of cereal, man, Cheerios, whatever it is, bam, on the school, doing our thing, and then back to the grind again when you get back home in the afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that, most people don't consider how that affects performance, right? Especially as a young kid. The rest, the preparation, a good meal, that support system, I think that all factors into that support system and that statistic that you spoke about, right?
A meal with the family. You're talking about
problems,
family things. So, you're with a family that you're talking about growth. You're talking about learning. You're talking about emotional things that make you feel good, connected. Yeah. Not that we didn't eat dinner family, but a lot of times it was on the run. It was, Morton's TV dinner, Swanson's TV dinners, frozen food dinners, come out of the oven, knock it out, done. And you're back to doing your homework. You're back to cleaning up. You're back to doing something to set up the next day because chores had to get done or things didn't happen. Clothes got to get washed. Clothes got to get ironed. We're wearing uniforms every day, albeit it's the same one. They only got a couple of shirts and a couple of pair of pants, but those have to be ironed and pressed and, ready to go for the next morning. I'm doing all that every day. So,
yeah, you were talking about support systems, those Swanson dinners and how important that is. I have a question for you. So we're talking about two-parent household and, how you had 50% of a void. Was there anyone in the community that stepped up that, I guess, supported you as a father figure in a way?
No, not at all. Really, the closest male to me was my maternal grandfather. And again, he was aging. He was in the latter part of his government career. Great man. We ended up I think spending a lot more time together once I was an adult, graduated from college, start working, because we started playing golf together. So our connections got a lot stronger, in his later years. But early in the years, it was just more of a grandfather figure. If I needed a ride, if I needed money for a pizza, food, he always delivered. He was very caring in that regard. We didn't spend a lot of time talking about life and perspectives and all that, but he was there from a nurturing and a comfort standpoint. He was great with that. And again, our relationship really evolved once I got a little bit older. But early on, no, there was really not any. The male figures that I, hung out with were the guys that were in the neighborhood, and they were good guys. They were guys that were, a few years older than me that I sort of looked up to from a, experience standpoint, because the waters they're navigating, I'm about to get in those waters. These are guys that are a little bit older, probably 3-4 years older than me. So they were already driving. And so I had obviously access to go places and get to different places, had, transportation, also just more experienced people who knew their way around a little bit, helped me navigate that. I learned from them on that. I learned a lot from everybody I was around. So the male figures were pretty much in the neighborhood. They were older guys who I had a lot of respect for and, taught me a lot.
Yeah.
Again, some things I wouldn't carry forward. Some things I did carry forward.
But it was a lesson nonetheless.
Lesson nonetheless.
Understood. So I know we're at high school. We're having conversations about college life, right? And what that looks like. In the book, you mentioned, you were always a visionary from the beginning. And you mentioned college was your pathway to a better life. But in your mind, you were exposed to what I'm hearing, and you referenced in the book, a lot of governmental work. Your mom worked at a government printing office, right?
Yep.
And your idea was you could get a better job in government so you're able to support yourself more than you have, right?
Right. A degreed individual should get a better, sort of government salary based on the levels they had. I was very familiar with that system, having worked in it, do summer jobs.
Yeah.
And I thought early in my college life, that's the path I was headed down. Again, having a degree, doing a little bit better, having more stability, creating a family situation that was going to be sort of less volatile, less dysfunctional per se, having more, more of that being on solid ground. That was my ambition at the time, which was obviously a step change from where I was and where we were. Mm-hmm. But then once I got into Hampton, once I started to really see the bigger picture, I started dreaming a lot bigger and realized that, wow, you can go a lot farther in life than I had ever imagined, breaking out of a sort of a government mindset to, corporate America, maybe even being an entrepreneur. I really didn't consider that probably as much as I did, but I wanted to go in corporate America. I really was a business major. I saw the companies coming down recruiting. They were all big companies coming on campus. The market was really good market back in the late 80s. So it was like, hey, I'm going for this corporate America thing. Very different than the government life I had anticipated, being very structured. Matter of fact, it was a joke in my mind. I was laughing at this one time because I called the Pepsi guys when I first got hired. My very first day of work was June 6, 1988. I called them on June the 3rd through the 4th just to touch base on logistics of showing for work the first day in Baltimore. And so they said, we want you here at 6 a.m. So then in my mind, if I was working a government job, it was 6 a.m., you would get off like 2:30. You get to half our lunch break. It was like the 8-hour shift. Yeah. No, I was real. So I'm thinking, it's pretty cool. Now I'm driving from D.C. because I'm still living at home. And I'm thinking, I got to leave at like 4:45, 5 o'clock to get there because it took like 45 minutes to get to the facility in Baltimore every day. So I figured I'll leave at like 4:50, 4:45, 5 o'clock. And then, damn, I'll be off by 2:30. I'll be home at 3:30 every day, go play hoops, go have a good time, this, that, and the other. Man, that first day, dog, I was there at 6. I didn't leave till 6:30 at night. And I'm going like
this is not it.
Yeah, what happened to that flex hour thing? I guess this flex hour thing doesn't work in corporate America, And so it was like a real wake-up call for me going, this is a very different sort of life, career, environment than what a government life is. Because that was my first sort of non-government job that I had, And so it was like, okay, so this thing just you just basically work till the job gets done. That's basically the mindset.
Yeah.
You show up early, especially in the business I was in, and you work as hard as you can, and until the job gets done, you don't punch out the clock. There was no real clock, but you don't leave and go home yet. And so the next day and the next day and the next day, it's the same thing. It's 6:30, it's 6:30, might be 7:30. One day it was like 8:30 because there's a lot of work to do out here. Like I'm running my route, and I'm like, man, this work is just a lot of work to do the job the right way.
Yeah.
I had to stay and put the time in to do it the right way because I was always about doing it the right way. So I sort of reset my mindset to say, okay, embrace this as a learning opportunity. This is a new space. I didn't come here to get defeated or to, create a mindset where I'm going to try to shortcut the system. I'm going to embrace everything that's come my way. I'm going to embrace the hard work. I'm going to embrace the challenges, getting to know how to learn everything. I'm going to embrace the long hours. Because again, being a gym rat, I want to stay around. I want to stick around after work to see what goes on, to see how things work, to see how my next day gets set up every day. And so as I became more and more efficient, naturally the hours got better. There are times when 3 months went by after my training window, or after my training window was 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, you were given the keys and you were told you were on your own. Yeah. 2 weeks in the job, I rode with a guy for about 10 days, and then they handed me the keys that Monday and said, you're on your own now. It's your route, your accountability. Nobody's training you anymore. Training wheels are off. Good luck. That was basically the mindset. And so I had to then learn. That's what created a lot of the longer hours and me trying to figure things out. But then it became, once I started learning how to become efficient on my own space and control my own destiny, guess what happened? I started seeing productivity. I started seeing my hours get a little bit better. I mean, there was times when I was done at 4. I'm going, wow. There was times even on Friday I'm done at 2:30, 3 o'clock because I had done all the work. Yeah. I had laid the foundation of being efficient. I sent all my orders in early in the week. I talked to my store managers who allowed me to keep extra back stock. And I would say I would be there to work that back stock. So I don't want to send my orders on a Friday. I got burned. I was going back to Hampton one Friday early in my cycle, and I sent a bunch of orders out on Friday to be covered for the weekend. And guess what happened? Truck broke down, so all those orders got delayed. I had to meet the truck there. I had to meet the orders there to get there. My last orders didn't get delivered till 8:30 that night on Friday. So needless to say, I couldn't go down to school that weekend. But the greatest lesson I learned is don't send all your orders out on Friday. That wasn't smart. So guess what happened? I started sending my orders early in the week, bigger orders. Guess what happened? With that, automatically, one, I preserved my time. I got to manage my time appropriately on the weekend so I can dismount at the right time. But what happened for the company is I was saving the company money by sending bigger orders early in the week. Yeah. And here's a rookie, a new guy, that they did a chart one day. All of a sudden, I come into the work one day, and we have a staff meeting, and they say, look at order efficiencies. Look at who's number one. The youngest person in this room, the least experienced person in this room, has the best order efficiency of everybody in this room. He's sending out X number of cases per order. He's saving us X number of dollars per delivery per week, which amounts to significant dollars over the course of a year. And they're going to me, and everybody's looking at me going, you trying to show us up and this, that, and the other? I'm like, no, I'm just trying to run my route more efficiently. Yeah. I'm doing what's right for me and for my customers. Yeah. If I send the big orders out early in the week and they allow me to stock them in there, we'll never, ever run out. Yeah. That was my whole mentality. I don't want you to run out. I don't want you to have to wait till a Friday afternoon order to get through the weekend. I want you to have that inventory already in the store. My commitment to you is I'll be here to work it, consolidate it, keep it clean, keep it efficient for your guys in the back. And all the store managers agreed, that's fine. Load me up. As long as you commit to do what you're going to do, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Guess what? It kept out of stocks, null and void. We basically were in stock all the time in the stores. Customers were happy. Yep. Store managers were happy because their customers were happy. The company was happy because we were saving money on delivery efficiency, right? I was sending out orders early in the week, so there was less overtime being accumulated for the drivers. We were more efficient at sending out orders, bigger orders earlier in the week, more pallets per truck. So we were getting all these efficiencies off of basically a small decision that I made.
I think it's so interesting thinking about, like you said, you had this idea of the work hours that you expected, and you realized that there was more work to be done. It wasn't necessarily about 9 to 5.
It wasn't a shift.
It's about the work.
It's not a shift.
Right?
It's not a shift. It's about the work.
It's about the work, but you knew what you wanted that shift to look like.
Right.
So you did the work to create that environment for you. That's innovation. Right.
And that's the magic with everything is that if I can do this with that, then I can do this in all other areas of the business too. Now it's just for me is now I'm starting to play my own game.
You pace setting, right?
Right. I'm playing my own game.
Yep.
I'm doing everything in my power to beat my numbers, to drive efficiency, to drive customer satisfaction. I want all my store managers happy. All that was all in play for me. And that, whatever that required, whatever that took, I did it because I'm on the start of a long journey here. So getting off to the right start, establishing the right foundation for me starting my career was super important to me. And so I didn't want any missteps there. So the early phase was going to be the message that, hey, I'm coming. The message I'm sending to the company, I'm sending to the competition, I'm sending to the marketplace, Derek Lewis is coming. And you ain't gonna, nothing is going to get in my way of achieving what I want to achieve here. I'm going for it.
I absolutely appreciate that. Before we go forward, there are some big components to this conversation that we're going to talk about. But I want to go back to your decision to go to Hampton. You mentioned in the book that you didn't want to stay in D.C. Was there another university that you were considering before you landed with Hampton? What kind of went through your mind there?
No, the real HU was always at Hampton. I didn't want to mess around and, look at that other school in D.C., man, by the way.
What school? I'm just
the other HU. No, I got love for my Howard University piece, man. But no, I wanted to get away. So I applied, it was funny. I applied to Florida State. I applied to the University of Pittsburgh. I think actually my high school program it says University of Pittsburgh. I got accepted to all these schools. I had really good grades. I was a high honor roll student in high school. Had like a 3.8 GPA. So I was getting tons of acceptance letters from different schools. And I think a lot of it was just applying to good football programs back then. Like the Knolls were really good. I wanted to go down there. I looked up at Pittsburgh. I think Dan Marino was still in school. And, I wanted to go up there, right? So a lot of it was just my affinity for college sports and football guys. So I'm going to apply to places where they got a good football program. But the reality is I knew I wanted to go to Hampton. Hampton was always going to be number one. My grandfather went to Hampton, graduated in 1938. He graduated 50 years before me, exactly 50 years before me. My aunt went to Hampton. I think she graduated in 79. And I used to go down to school with my grandfather to pick her up and drop her off. So I would take that 2.5, 3 hour ride from D.C. down to the Tidewater area. I got very familiar with the campus, seeing us pick her up. And we had good moments in there because little did I know that the three of us will all be Hamptonians. I didn't obviously know I was going to be the Hamptonian, but those two were Hamptonians. I think he was obviously very proud that she went there. And, the fact that I'm sitting in the back seat one day and I'm the future Hamptonian just made those moments more special for me as I look back and reflect on them. So Hampton was always going to be, in my mind, number one. And when I was proud when I told him that I chose Hampton because he knew I had a lot of different options and I was going to go away. But I remember coming up to him in his bedroom one day and saying, hey, I'm going to Hampton. And I could tell how proud he was. He wasn't a super emotional person, the big hugs and things like that we do. But I could see that moment of pride and joy in his face that I was going to continue the legacy of the family. And that was a special moment again I won't ever forget.
Absolutely. That's amazing. And how was that support system being a third generation Hamptonian? And once you went off to Hampton, how did they support you in your journey?
I mean, it was a situation of pride. I mean, they were always have my back. I mean, I was sort of getting left alone down there. I didn't really, they didn't really come down and necessarily see me a lot or, I don't think anybody really visited me when I was down there. I may see my aunt, whatever, for homecoming if she came down, but basically I was down there on my own, growing up. I was 17 because I was a young high school student graduating, and I was 17 as a freshman. And my grandfather did buy me a car. I had a Chevy Nova when I was a senior in high school, so I was able to sort of muster it up to sneak that down there because you weren't allowed to have cars as a freshman. But I can find a way to do anything. You look at my ability to create magic, I can create any kind of magic. So I had a parking permit, official parking permit, had it. Don't ask me how I got it, but I got it. And, I had my car down there. So I was a
freshman with a car.
Freshman with a car. I was making money. I was driving kids to the airport on the breaks.
Yep.
I was coming back down. I was charging at the time, I was basically doing Uber at the time. Seriously. I mean, these things are kind of funny how they come full circle. Yeah. But during the Christmas run, exam run, I could easily have gone home, but I was charging, I think, $10 a trip to go to the Norfolk airport, and so I would charge students $10, and I had a lot of female clients, you've seen though a lot of females did go to the school there, and I would charge $10 a trip, and I would just basically do a loop. So all day long, I would just be dropping off, women, men, to the airport, and sometimes I would have 2 in the car, 3 in the car at a time. Mm-hmm. So I'm getting $30, $20, $30 a ride to go to Norfolk's airport, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. End up putting a couple $100 in my pocket. Then I go blast home for the holidays, with that money in my pocket, knowing I had no other means of getting any money. My mom might give me a little money, but other than that, if I didn't do those side hustles, I wouldn't have had money to go out during the holidays. So I needed that little pocket change to do that.
You've been flexing that entrepreneurial muscle for a long time.
I was doing it unbeknownst to me.
You were doing it in school, remember?
I was doing it in school.
You said you were selling your
Doritos.
Your Doritos. You call them taco chips.
They were taco Doritos.
Taco
flavored Doritos, yeah.
And so it's interesting, like you said, you always find a way out of no way, right? And
find the right way.
Find the right way.
Because with my dad, we were doing it the wrong way.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to do it that way. So I was going to do it the right way. So I had to hustle. So I had to sell things. I had to drive people to the airport. I mean, I had cut grass. I cut grass. I cleaned houses. I ironed clothes. I was using all the skills that I was trained to do because I had to be responsible in my household. I ended up taking those skills and using that to go make money. So it was easy for me to go cut grass a weekend and put $40, $50 in my pocket. It was easy for me to go clean people's houses and put $20, $30 in my pocket. It was easy for me to go wash cars and do that and put $10, $15, $20 in my pocket so I can go out to the movies. I can go out and buy me a fake Ralph Lauren polo shirt that I talked about buying.
Yep, in Silver Spring, Maryland.
I couldn't afford the good one, so I had to go down to all the shops there in Silver Spring and pick up a $10, $15 Ralph Lauren phony.
No,
it was a way of life.
I get it. Not fake it till you make it, but you knew what you wanted, but you really acquired with what you had. And I think that is something to appreciate. So we talked about the hustle and doing it the right way. What skills did you gain at Hampton University that allowed you to build upon that foundation that you had prior to? And how did that contribute to the success that we briefly just talked about in the early stages of your career?
I think I had all the street smarts. Coming to Hampton, my street smart skills were off the charts based on the life I was living, what I was doing, right? My responsibility levels were higher than average, I think, coming down there. Again, I'm 17, and I'm living the life of a, 20, 30, 40, 50-year-old in some cases, depending upon the circumstances of my house, right?
Yeah.
But when I got in the classroom, I did learn that the sort of intellectual capabilities went up to a higher level, right? Because now, I'm around really talented students, and I thought I was pretty smart coming out of high school, but I realized that the bar was even higher.
Yeah.
And then when I pledged and I got in the fraternity, I learned that there were good brothers to learn from, brothers that had been there, brothers that were alumni, brothers that pledged me, offered me a tremendous amount of insight, things that I would have never known otherwise. Have not gone through that. So I think the experience is being around the people at Hampton, being around the administration, being around the faculty, being around the students, being around the Divine Nine, really elevated me to a different emotional level. Because now here are people that are really like me. We're like-minded now. So for the first time, when you go into Catholic school, it's a mixing pot. You're dealing with kids that are from the suburbs, from the city, rural parts, they come from all over. It's a very mixed, diverse group. So there was benefits of being in that environment, to see the world, to see how the community is. Yeah. You're going to Hampton, you're different. It's it's a family now. It's culture. It's protected in a lot of ways, right? And so, but you're learning your self-value, your self-worth. You're getting a lot of self-awareness within your culture on how high is high. And I recognize that where I might have put myself and placed myself in the cultural space, I realized when I got to Hampton that there was so much more growth for me to have and happen. I didn't even know anything about Divine Nine when I got to Hampton. That's how naive I was. Didn't know anything about that life at all. And then when I get there freshman week, I'm doing pretty well because there's only freshmen down there. I'm inserting myself and, getting along pretty well with everybody, thinking I'm a, big man on campus as a freshman. Man, when those upperclassmen came back, man, did I ever feel small in my life when I saw all those upperclassmen come back. And all the Greek came back, all the Greek life, and I'm going like, I was overwhelmed. I was like, holy cow, I've never seen anything like this in my life. Overwhelmed with the presence, the power, sociability, the high, emotional intelligence that was around. Like, this is elite. This is the bar. Yeah. But I embraced that again as a growth opportunity. I didn't look at it and go, I'm going to run from this or hide from this or resist it or try to fight it. I'm going to embrace it as this. I can become a enhanced version of myself. I become a better version of myself by embracing this culture, by learning from people who are ahead of me, watching. Don't always try to create the action. Sometimes just embrace the action. And so the set of skills that I learned on campus were transformational to allow me to dream even bigger than what I thought coming from high school, coming down as a freshman.
I love that. Can we talk a little bit more about another transformational experience?
Sure.
You meeting your wife, Shireen?
Absolutely. That was transformational.
Yeah. Let's talk about that when you met her initially in college, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Yeah. Talk to me about it. You met her based on your excerpt in the book. You were being a gentleman. Like you said, you were driving people around, but this time you offered a ride to a few young women for free.
Right.
So you were being chivalrous, and that turned into something else. So let's start there.
Well, I remember it was Labor Day weekend, and class hadn't started yet, but everybody had to move in because classes started like the next Monday. So this is the Saturday, Labor Day weekend, fall of 1987. And my sons and I we're having a party. We have a capital party that night. Mm-hmm. So we're recruiting for people to come to the party that night. And it was Friday night. It was a Friday night party. And so we're driving around all the female dorms and basically promoting the party and offering rides. So we pull up in front of Virginia Cleveland Hall, where my wife has stayed, with some of her friends. And they were outside, and we were talking about, hey, what are y'all doing tonight? We're having a capital party off campus. And, of course, they're like, well, we have no way of getting there. Where is it? What time is it? Where your ride. We will drive you over to the party, and we will bring you back from the party. That's what we do. So they were like, hey, bet, no problem. Can we run upstairs and change and get our, belongings or whatever? Like, sure, go ahead. And so they get in the car. We drive them to the party. We had driven other people to the party as well, and then we were all figuring out ways to get people back. So we all had a very coordinated way of making sure whoever we brought to the party, we got them back to the party. And sometimes that meant even having us tell people, hey, we got to leave now. It's not over yet, but we got to leave to get you back because the dorms had curfews. Yeah. And they got locked out if they didn't make their curfew. So we ended up driving them to the party. They had a good time. I saw them in the party here and there, and y'all having a good time, they're having a good time, this, that, and the other. And then we get to the point where we have to leave now.
Yeah.
So party's over. We're taking them back to campus. I know it's well after 11 o'clock. Mm-hmm. We thought midnight was the curfew. They could get back in the dorm, and they thought they were just going to basically knock on a window or call somebody to get back in. But we got back, and they couldn't get back in. Mm-hmm. Like, it just couldn't get back in. So we're sitting here on campus, can't get back in the dorm, and, I'm like, they're like, well, what are we going to do? I mean, I could tell they're like a little bit like we actually can't get back in our dorm. We're knocking, kicking, screaming. We can't get back in our dorm. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, all right, I got a crib off campus. I'll just take you to my crib. Y'all crash on my floor. We got 2 floors. I'll sleep downstairs or whatever on the couch downstairs. Y'all can figure out the bedroom thing. Mm-hmm. 2 of you here, 1 of you here. That's up to y'all. Y'all figure it out. So we drove back to the crib. We were hungry because we didn't really eat at the party. There was no food at the parties, right? So I think I had like frozen pizzas. We put the frozen pizzas in. We went back upstairs talking. Frozen pizzas got burned. I'm not going to say who was responsible for that in this, but not the fire alarm, but the smoke alarms are going off. And, we have an episode at like 1 o'clock in the morning at my townhome. My roommates get up like, what's going on, man? I'm like, it's all good. It's all good. But so next morning, wake up, drop them back off. All's good, thankful, grateful, looked after them as I would have for anybody. Look at them like little sisters and like, we're good. And then, so see you later, right? Like, see you guys on campus, and I'm going about my weekend. It was Labor Day weekend. It's a big weekend. And then all of a sudden I get like a phone call like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, like, hey, Derek. And I'm like, yeah. It's like, hey, this is Shireen. I'm like, yo, the crew from last night, right? Yeah. It's like, yeah. And they're like, well, we want to know what you're doing tonight. I'm going over to Norfolk to a party, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like, well, we didn't know, we didn't have anything to do. We're wondering if you had room and could you take us over to the party in Norfolk? And I'm going like, and the funny thing is, I was going over by myself and meet the bros over there.
Yeah.
So actually, I had room, and I'm going sitting there. Am I going to tell them I actually have room? Like, I'm going through that moment where, how transparent am I going to be with like freshmen that I just met that I've only known for 18 hours.
Yeah.
But I'm like, yeah, I got, because they were a cool group. It was a cool group. So I'm like, yeah, I got room. Y'all want to go over? They're like, yeah. I say, well, I'll pick y'all up at like 6 or 7, and we'll go over to Norfolk. So we go. I picked them up. We're driving over, and then I could see like Shireen sat in the front, and the other two sat in the back, and they're in the mirror like doing all these hand signs, and pointing like to her, and like I'm looking in the mirror. I'm driving, kind of like, oh, what the hell's going on back here? So they're basically signaling like, hey, she's on you. By the way, so
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, okay, now how do I navigate this, right? Like, okay, so I'm calm. I'm like, I'm chill. I'm cool. And so we go to the party, bring them back in time to get back in the dorm next time, and then Shereen and I had more of a conversation outside, exchanged numbers. We already had numbers, but I'm like, call me tomorrow, or call me the next day. We'll talk and see how it's going, this, that, and the other. And so we ended up doing that. I did have a girlfriend. I told her that I had a girlfriend. I was very upfront about that. It's in the book. I think I made that mention in the book. I want to be clear about that.
Yeah. You mentioned it, that you said it in the book, but you didn't say it in the best way.
I said I had a girlfriend. I told that very upfront.
You just left the details out.
So I did leave some details out, but did I have to go through the details? Should I have gone through all the details?
You said you should have.
I don't remember that part, but I just told her what was going on. So now I'm navigating. So what happens is I start hooking up with her and the girlfriend. So now like I got a problem now. Like I'm like literally now, and I'm the dean of pledges, and I'm trying to put a line together in the fall. So now all of a sudden now I have like complexity. Yeah. I had this vision in my mind I was going to have a very killer senior year, organized, on top of my game, seamless, and now I got this female dilemma that I never had at any point in time at Hampton. But all of a sudden now my senior year, now there's a dilemma. You got senior and you got a freshman. And it's now like it's on. And so, so I'm going along with the flow. All along that, I'm transparent with you. So, you got to know what you got to know. Mm-hmm. And when I'm available, I'm available. When I'm not available, I'm not available. Like that was the code I was operating under, right? Being transparent. And so all that was kind of working out fine. And I think till homecoming, there was the bazaar that you have and the coronations.
Yeah.
So I had 2 coronations that I was involved in. I was Mr. Business Club. So I got voted in that. So I was Mr. Business Club and had to take out Miss Business Club. Mm-hmm. And we go down and do the coronation and the walk. And then at that time, I think I had a blue bow tie on with that transaction. And then also my girlfriend at the time was Miss Delta Sigma Theta. Mm-hmm. And so I was Mr. sort of Delta Sigma Theta that night, her escort. Mm-hmm. So then I had to go back and change and put on a red tie. Yep. So meanwhile, I'm going through all this. Serena's in the stands in the gym watching the coordination, sees me going down with her, and basically saying, I thought you thought that was over, and da-da-da. So needless to say, like, that was going on for another couple of months. And then, I sort of worked my way through that. And then the Valentine's Day, I call it massacre, came up where, that day is a day you can't hide. And there's no way to work it out. So I think I know what happened. I think I went out to dinner with my girlfriend. Somebody saw us there, probably called her. She showed up at my house, knocked on the door, banged on the door. It got ugly, big confrontation. And at the end of the day, both women ended up like leaving. Like it was like, this is a bloodbath. So it was like, it was over. Like I didn't want to I'm still pledging my guys. Like I'm still the DP and I'm like, I got too much going on. So everybody's mad, annoyed, yelling at me, screaming at me. I'm like, I just can't take it. Like, let's just it's over. Like it's over.
This is like one of the rare cases where it might have been better if cell phones existed, because at least a picture would have been taken and got sent to you and you could have dealt with that over the phone, but you had to deal with it in person.
Oh yeah,
so.
no, I was it was live. This was live at the Apollo, man. This was not pretty. It was not pretty scene at all. And
Yeah.
so ended up going sideways with both parties. And again, I felt bad. I felt terrible that had to happen. I did not want that to happen. I was responsible for that happening. I did not want that to happen, but it did. And so my orientation is you just sort of move on. Like, okay, it happened. Mm-hmm. It was uncomfortable. Get through it. You got the line. You've got the rest of your semester. You got career aspirations. Like, hunker down. Don't let this be a setback to you.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. I mean, I let it go. I carried on the semester. Took the line across. Got my job secure with Pepsi. Did well the rest of the semester in terms of, academic accomplishments, things of that nature. Graduated running through the tape. Very, very happy about all that. Got my job. Very happy what started. But I left, call it relationshipless when I left campus. And I was okay with that, because, again, my plan was career, financial stability, home ownership, get yourself on a real solid foundation before the relationship thing really mattered at the top of the chain. I did not want that to be the top of the chain. So I was okay with everything that happened.
Absolutely. I don't want to give them everything that's in the book, but I would say in this particular chapter, one of the things that, I absolutely loved, and it was my favorite chapter of the book, when you mentioned that, when you both did reconnect, her understanding of who she was and her knowledge of her own self-worth allowed you to analyze where you needed to grow. And you knew that she was the one for you. So you decided that you were going to be together. And then that allowed you, as you built out that foundation that you just spoke of, to really take it off. And I would say a rocket ship, right? Like, I'm deciding we're going to build Team Lewis, as you say. And you worked through the things that you needed to work through, and you guys connected, and you've been married ever since.
Yeah. 32 years, yeah. It's been amazing journey, and again, it's been a shared vision from day one, right? Going back to that sort of reuniting moment, and I would say, look, the beauty of and a recognition from my standpoint, not at that time, but when you're on campus with somebody and your relationship with somebody you're on campus with, and you see them basically every day, you know that person inside and out. Like, their value structure, how they are. You see them when they're with you. You see them when they're without you. You see them on their bad hair days. You see them on their best hair days, and everything all in between, right? So you've got this complete picture laid out in front of you that there's not going to be much variation from that person in the real world post-school. Yeah. Now, when you're on the outside, and you're having these temporary relationships that you're going through, you don't get to see the whole thing. You don't have the luxury. You don't have the luxury of seeing it day in and day out. You may see it for a concentrated period of time because, you're at work all day, or, you only see a section of that, and you don't really have a history. You don't see the history. You don't see the maturity and the growth and the evolution, right? It's hard to encapsulate all that at that time. Yeah. Having the ability to go to school with somebody and see somebody in their environment day in, day out was a huge bonus. So there is a comparative set for me now. There is a basis where I can go, somebody that I know very, very well and have seen the growth and maturity and the value creation of that individual versus people that I meet on a temporary basis that I don't really get the full picture. But even in our little window of time, there's enough sort of disconnects and misalignment that what I had or what I saw, what I experienced was far greater to any of those situations that I was in. That made me realize that you actually had it the best then. Yeah. You just didn't recognize it. You didn't realize it, Even though you had your theory about, well, I want the person to grow. I don't feel like coming back every weekend. I don't want to have to nurture a long-term relationship being, 22, 21, 22 years old. I just didn't see that in the cards. Yeah. Was sort of a missed call on my end. It was a bad call on my end, right? But that's the call I made, and I have to live with that. I'm willing to live with the calls that I make, as long as I can learn from and grow with them. I learned from that call. Yeah, I learned from that. And fortunate enough, the situation worked itself out where I was able to get back in the door, albeit it wasn't as easy as it was the first time. And I recognize that as well. And again, I'm willing to put the work in now because I realize that what I'm playing for now is just beyond a 1 year, 2 year, 1 semester, 2 semester thing. I'm now playing for a lifetime. So I have to put that work in to show, convince, influence the decision on the other end to say, hey, this person to me is a different person. The version of me now is a lot more mature. My foundation is a lot stronger. I'm a lot more committed. And I learned from what I did wrong the last time. And I own up to that. I'm not at all pushing that off on, hey, it wasn't my fault. It was just circumstances. No, I had to own that. And I recognize I had to own that. So I think the way that life evolves and you embracing lessons and putting those forward to increase and improve yourself, to create a better version of yourself, is the magic of life. Yeah. If you constantly live in denial, wasn't my fault, no, it was her fault, it wasn't my fault, it was all her fault, somebody else's fault, I was fine, I did everything I could do, I think you're going to limit yourself. I'm a person where, shit, that was my fault. Okay, It was my fault. And did I learn from it? Absolutely learned from it. Yeah. Made me a better person. And it gave me more conviction of that when I know that who I want to be there by my side and we have the shared vision. And now the life I dreamt of when I was a kid I now can, the whole thing came very clear. Yeah. Now it's just execute and deliver. Mm-hmm. Execute and deliver. Execute and deliver is not always easy. It's simply said, but the playbook for you and your life, you're set. You now have the foundation. You now have the partner. All you have to do is stay on track and stay focused. And you are going to get a gift and a run that's going to be very special. One that you might not have envisioned as a child. You couldn't see as high as this is going to be, but you saw parts of it, and you did enough just to give yourself that chance to allow this to happen.
I absolutely love that. I think there's just 2 chapters that I think are extremely important. I feel like it's absolutely necessary for us to touch on. One is the 30 Suits. I know we talked about mentorship and how important that is. And can you walk us through that story with
Mr. G
of
Mr.
Business
Graves.
Enterprise, as well as Irvin, as you would call him, but Magic Johnson, whom
we had to call him Irvin. We had to call him Irvin, man. Yeah.
How important was that experience working with those 2 giants in your maturation process and really what you're doing today, right? One of the things that you mentioned is not just business, but it's the grit, understanding deals, but also understanding where business and culture aligns. And I think you're clearly still utilizing those lessons that you learned then.
Absolutely. Mr. Graves was phenomenal. Again, people always ask, you get these questions, who your heroes are, right? And you're going to name people, a lot of people that you never really came in contact with. You say, if I had to go have dinner with somebody, who would that be, and this, that, and the other. But I do, when you ask me who my heroes are, he is one of those heroes. He was an exceptional person. He was an exceptional businessman, entrepreneur. He was an exceptional family man, husband and father. He was an exceptional ambassador of the community and the culture. I look at those things out of him, and I wanted desperately to model myself after his philosophy and his framework, because in my mind, he hit it out of the park. And so when he ended up, along with Irvin, acquiring ownership of the Pepsi business in D.C., he actually recruited me to go. I had to go get on a train and go. I remember getting on a train in Baltimore and going up to New York and meet with him in his office in Manhattan and convincing me of why it was going to be fun to work for him and the organization he was trying to build, and he was going to invest in people like me. And you can't imagine how magical of a interview that was.
And how old were you at the time?
19. I was 23.
Yeah, wow.
23. Maybe I turned, 23 years old, yeah. So it was magical for me to have that time with him, as a 23-year-old, right? And that we're building something bigger, and we're gonna have some fun here. We see you as a key leader. At the age of 23, we're gonna put you on one of the biggest jobs we have in this facility, because we know that what you've done in Baltimore, laying that foundation, is gonna be beneficial to us. You're a DC native. You know the business well. you're hungry, you have a lot of growth in front of you, you're the perfect candidate for us to build around. You know, we're going to draft you as a May draft pick and basically build around you.
Yeah.
So when you have somebody like that, like cutting into you like that, how in the world do you even like fathom not doing it? Like I'm like, I'm doing it. They had risk associated with it because I was leaving a comfortable situation where also I had a rapid ascent plan for me.
Yeah.
And I was stepping into a space where you're going to be running a startup. It's going to be a very difficult operation because you're pulling together a lot of newness from the different geographies that this business was being constructed out of. It was basically creating a new business from an existing business that already existed, right? So there's a lot of carve-outs and, you know, a lot of things that happened that made it a very complex operation to start out. We ended up being fine at the end, but it was very difficult at the beginning for a lot of different reasons. But he always believed in me, and there were a couple of times when I remember being with him alone. The first time, I'll talk about the 30 C's, but the first time was it's late at night. I'm leaving to go home. It's got to be like 7:30. He's in executive office. I happen to pass by his office. His door's open, and he's either coming back in the office or standing up, but he sees me. And he calls me in his office and just wants to talk and say, how's it going? How you doing? You know, we had that moment. And then he remembers I went to Hampton. He's like, have you talked to Bill recently? You know, and he's talking about Dr. Harvey. And I'm like, no, I haven't. I may see him at homecoming or whatever, but I haven't talked to him recently. He's like, let me get him on the phone.
Yeah.
And he picks up the phone, and he basically dials his phone, and Dr. Harvey picks up right away. He's like, you know, Bill, this is Earl. He's like, Earl, what are you doing? And I could tell he had him on speakerphone for a while, and then he picked up. But they had this, you know, again, common ground. He's like, I think it was near graduation, because he's like, look, I won't be able to make it down to graduation. I know you invited me to come down. I'm going to send one of your alumni, Derek Lewis, down as my representative. I'm going to hook him up, send him down to homecoming to represent the Pepsi business down there for the weekend. Please, you know, ensure that you guys pull out the red carpet for Derek when he comes down. It's like, absolutely. It happened to be the same weekend that my wife was graduating down there. So it was like, I was going anyway, but he's like, I'm gonna put you up in a hotel. I'm gonna give you a little spending money for dinners and things like that. It was exceptional. And the next day I had this handcrafted note with an allowance. You know, it might have been like a couple $100 or whatever. Enjoy the weekend, Hampton. Congratulations, you know, and thank you for being a great representative of our company, Earl Graves. So this is amazing. Like, this man is incredible. So he at that moment I learned the power of relationships. He could pick up the phone and call anybody. We are also, there's three actually, I'm gonna give you three examples. That's the first one. The second one, we're driving through town and we're driving on a market tour. We're just driving around and he sees like a construction site going on in the middle of downtown DC. He's like, what's going on there? And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, well, we need to find out. We need to know what's going on there because that could be a business opportunity for us. Yeah. So lo and behold, he gets on the phone, calls the mayor, sets up a meeting with the mayor. We're in the mayor's office within an hour. We're in the mayor's office. He's like, he's on the phone. I can hear him talking on the phone on the side. You know, I was obviously eavesdropping, but he's talking to somebody. He's like, okay, that'd be great. We can be there. Derek, how far are we from this place? I'm like, we're probably like 15 minutes away. He's like, okay. Yeah, we could be there within the hour. He's like, all right, thank you for the bye. Next thing I know, he said, we're going to the mayor's office. Drive me over there. We're going to go and meet the mayor and talk to the mayor about, I want to just be involved in what's going on. I want to understand the projects that are going on the ground. And again, relationships. I'm going, man, this dude is so connected. He has so much respect. And he has a way about bringing people along that I just haven't seen, like at this level. The first time I'm like exposed to watching somebody in our culture navigate the way he navigates. We went to the Washington Bullets game that night. I happened to drive him over to the arena. That's the night of the suits, so I'll tell you about the suits that night. Then I drive over to the arena, and again, we go meet with the owners of the team. He's getting in all the executive spaces, handshaking. What can we do to help support your business, Earl? You know, this is one of my young, proteges, and he's bringing me along as if, like I'm the guy, and it was just a fantastic day. But early that day, before the game, he says, meet me over. I got a call, meet him over at his apartment in Virginia. And I go over to his apartment. I'm going, did I do something wrong? I mean, like, this is like I'm nervous. Like, what did I do? Like, he said, no, there's not a problem. They just want him to meet you over there. Meet him at 12:30, 12:31. He wants to spend some time with you or whatever. And I'm like, okay, all But there's no problem. No, there's no problem. It's all like nothing's wrong. It's good. So I go over there, and then I walk in the condo, and he has all these suits laid out on the couch, chairs, like dining room table, like everywhere. He's all these suits laid out. And he's telling me basically like, I'm upgrading or I'm getting new wardrobe, and I have all these suits, Derek, that I no longer wear. I thought you're like my build. I think he was slightly taller and obviously slimmer than I was, even though he was older than me. But he's like, if you like, I would love for you to pick any one of these that you want. If you want one, or if you want all of them, you're more than welcome to have them. It'd be an honor for me to gift them to you. If not, I'll just donate them to Goodwill or to some nonprofit. And I'm going there going like, he said, why don't you go try some of them on? So I start going a couple, try them on. Mm-hmm. And these are the bell-bottom ones. They got the long.
From the 70s.
Yeah, the 70s, bell-bottoms.
Yeah.
So they all had a bell-bottom disco look to them at the end. But they were all Ralph Lauren. They were all very high-quality suits. I mean,
so
excellent.
You got Ralph Lauren. You said
I finally got
you
the authentic
finally
Ralph
got
Lauren.
it.
I didn't have to go down to Silver Spring to the market to go get it. I
Yep.
got them from the man himself, who had all these designer suits, laid them out, and said, if you want all of them, take them. I took all of them. I called my wife, I said, this man just offered me like a whole new wardrobe. And he's like, I got to get them all, hemmed and everything, the pants, basically the pants, but the jackets fit great. I hemmed all the pants to, bring down the bell-bottom look a little bit. But I started wearing the suits to work every day. I went out and bought matching ties with a lot of the outfits, and I started dressing in a way that was very different for the business, right? I was coming in, looking more executive-like when I was a young pro. I saw the value at looking the part too.
Yeah.
So it's one thing of, talking the talk, walking the talk, but looking the part is also very important. And he taught me that as well. So I'm sitting here getting all these critical lifelong learning lessons from one of the best. And I'm watching it happen like on a one-on-one basis. I'm going, this is incredible. So feel like, God, you are all the things that I've prayed for and asked for, not necessarily like being close to somebody like this, but the gifts of one day, playing at a bigger, higher level, being involved and associated with things that are going to really level up, transform my life, so I can do the things I want to go do as a dad, as a business person, and as a community leader. Yeah. These things are unfolding in front of me now. Yeah. I'm going like, golly. And so that was a magical day that I never forget from him. I wish I still held on to one of the suits. I ended up over time, because I wasn't wearing them, because styles change and things like that. These were three-piece suits and bell-bottoms, and some of the bell-bottoms I kept. That over time, I started donating them away. I wish I had kept at least one. I kept one of the velvet ones for a long time, because if there was ever like a 70s party I went to, I would wear I wear the black velvet. I already had it. Right. Black velvet one was fantastic. And I probably held on that one until at least 2000 until at least 10 years ago.
I love that.
And I think I finally ended up donating that, but it wasn't without tribute. And when I put that last suit into the donation space, I thanked Mr. Graves for everything that he did for me in my life and meant for me, and he's one of my heroes, point blank.
I love that. I think what we covered today covers a lot of the foundational lessons in the journey that allowed you to elevate as an entrepreneur and as an executive. If there is any parting words that you have for the audience, or anything that you would like to share, feel free to do so now. We always want to end on a space where we are able to encapsulate what we talked about, in hopes that we're able to spark a new idea or a perspective in our audience. There's much more to learn about you, obviously, but that's why our audience needs to purchase the book, obviously.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the time. This was, when you ask these questions, again, it brings back a lot of great memories for me and has me dig into my core. And I'm really excited and honored and grateful of the journey I've had. It hasn't all been easy, but we're here today to talk about a very important piece, a journey of, I would say, resilience, determination, and the pursuit of dreams. And that's what Survive and Advance is all about, right? Lessons on living life without compromise, right? From a very early age, I knew had ideas of who I wanted to be, how I wanted to live my life, but do it authentically, do it the way I wanted to do it. One way I could be proud of who I am, stand up and be proud of who I am. Again, stand up as proud as a business person, stand up proud to be a spouse and a parent, and proud to be a community ambassador because I do care a lot about people. My life is transformed. I've been a go-getter my whole life. I've gotten results up, backwards, forwards, up and down, any way you can cut it, and I've been very successful doing that. Now I'm into being a go-giver. Now I want to be able to have the gift of giving insight, giving emotional support, giving financial support, giving health and wellness support and advice. I had a tough journey about a year and a half ago with cancer, and so when you go through these transformational experiences, they're not curses, they're not bad things, they're lessons, they're experiences that you can learn from, and fortunate enough I'm able to learn from these things to get better and do better and appreciate life in a different way. And so being able to dream big, being able to improve yourself, and being able to deliver type of results you want to do as a go-getter and go-giver is what I still strive to do every day, and I would encourage everybody out there to also go strive for. That's what this life is all about, a leveling up process that brings out the best in you and others around you for your entire life. It makes every day an exciting day, a day of promise, a day of hope, a day of inspiration, and a day of gratitude, because I'm grateful that I'm able to even sit here and be here with you, right? And if I get the opportunity tomorrow to get up and do it again, I'm grateful for that moment as well. So that's what this is all about, and I want people to embrace that and take this on seriously and hopefully learn a nugget or two about how they can level up their lives to be the best they can be.
Thank you. You inspire me. I want you to know that, and I want to say that I appreciate you coming to spend your time here. And for the audience, as always, I hope this conversation sparked a new idea or perspective in you. Thank you.
Thank you.
My man.
All right.